Hello, my name is Dalloul. The Dalloul Art Foundation is proud to present its second video exhibition, The Nude, Between Divinity, Sexuality, and Conflict. It's part of the Foundation's video exhibition series that was launched in May 2021. The exhibition includes more than 70 artworks of different mediums selected from DAF's wide-ranging art collection. The works comprise paintings, drawings, and sculptures that feature the entirely or partially nude human figure. The artworks on display span over nearly a century, starting from the early 1920s till date. In the region, the notion of obscenity and sexuality remain the most discussed aspects of art that features the nude human figure. This group of modern and contemporary artists have broken socio-cultural and political taboos and discredited the long-held belief that the nude is a category specific only to Western culture. Most artists featured in this show have absorbed Western art traditions in European academic institutions. However, in depicting nudity in their works, they underscored their own specific cultural context. Under Sexuality, the works featured nudes as with seductive gestures of lustfulness and intimacy. Here, the subject of study is not an imaginary depiction whose only end is to titillate the spectator. Instead, the subject of study is inspired by real life and is part of the artist's creative experience. With this, I'm going to pass you on to my colleagues, Wafa Ruz and Arthur Dipsy, who are going to begin their presentation of nudes from the Arab world.
This blazing painting, entitled She, was created in 2004 by contemporary Egyptian artist Mu'taz Nasser. Born in 1961 in Cairo, Nasser is known for his vast array of creative production, ranging from painting, sculpture, to video and public art installation. Egypt, along with its rich cultural heritage, is central to his art. 17 years ago, Mu'taz Nasser painted a semi-nude portrait of his beloved. The picture She reflects the artist's love, lust, and possibly his rage at the time. When asked about the context and painterly style of this work, Nasser stated, and I quote, "I have put my heart and soul into this work. I did it after we broke up." As we notice, Nasser depicts his beloved standing in the pose of a Venus pudica, where she covers her pudenda or vulva with her hand. The standing pose displays modesty and draws attention to her sensitive area. Still, Nasser's woman holds herself fiercely and gracefully, much like a merciless queen. The painting is undoubtedly personal. It is dedicated to and features a specific woman. Contrary to the typical 16th century Renaissance female nudes, She is not created for the sexual pleasure of the spectator. In the painting, with his animated depiction, Nasser binds the woman to him. The picture reflects a visual rapport between the artist and his fantasized model. Plus, the semi-nude woman is not passive. She confronts the viewer, or more accurately Nasser, her distressed lover, with self-assurance. She seems proud of her command and sexuality. The spectator who is capable of sensing this bond becomes an outsider. This attractive woman is Egyptian. She looks tall and svelte with wild facial features and lifted cheekbones. The artist emphasizes her brown skin tone and frizzy black hair. She stares at her once-loved man with black almond-shaped piercing eyes, contoured with thick eyebrows. She appears provocative, especially that her nostrils look pretty flared out and her seductive red luscious lips are tightened. She wears an opulent red scarlet robe that shields the left part of her body while it slips off its right side to expose her right shoulder, nipple, and part of her flawlessly flat belly. The robe runs down to adorn her sensitive part. We notice that her left leg is pushed to the front and her left hip is thrust out. She twists her right shoulder to the back while she turns her face in the opposite direction. Typically, the opening at the hip brings attention to her potency, and the shoulder twist to her sexual willingness. Nasser depicts his lady in red as lustful and reserved. She is equally in a state of love and hate. There is a temporal dimension to this work. The artist has depicted his woman in an emotional moment, a second before she takes off her robe or a second before she fully puts it on. He captures her in a snapshot. It is easy to envisage that the woman was entirely naked a minute ago. The painter places us in a lived experience. It is this process of stripping off her robe which elevates the erotic quality of the work. There is no doubt that the woman's stylized figure and sexy attire are the points of attraction in this painting. But what maintains this mixed feeling of tension and harmony is Nasser's clever selection of color combination. Nasser has chosen 3 dominant warm colors for his iconic figure: red, brown, and yellow. The figure stands against an abstract background painted in an analogous combination of complementary colors: violet blue, blue, and blue-green. This creates an energizing and intense effect. We cannot miss the flaming yellow halo around her head, which appears to be an extension of the red robe's blazing reflective light. The fiery yellow and the vibrant red powerfully symbolize rage, love, and passion. This work, though contemporary, resonates with Rubens' Helena Fourment in a fur robe or het pelsken known as the fur, finished in 1638. It is a semi-nude portrait of Rubens' second wife, Helena Fourment. Helena stands taking the pose of a Venus pudica also, and wears a fur robe loosely draped around her shoulders. The work has an erotic quality, however, it is personal. This was an exceptional female nude at the time. Instead of painting an idealized female figure based on an anonymous model, Rubens featured his own beloved wife and revealed her natural body and huddled skin. Like Rubens, Nasser depicted a particular woman. She was created for his own sake, and the painting allowed him to give free rein to his imagination.
When studying at the Académie Julian in Paris in 1921, Mahmoud Said trained in nude painting, executing many sketches from live models. According to some archival documents, the painter showed how he was already interested in capturing the expression of the model in his art practice. Since then, the production of Mahmoud Said's nude paintings extends over roughly 40 paintings, when he was actually working as a deputy district prosecutor at the State Prosecution Service in Alexandria. Part of the earliest series of nudes by Mahmoud Said, the example of L'Endormi, executed in 1933, was exhibited at the Rétrospective des œuvres de Mahmoud Said at Geziri Palace in Cairo in 1951. This painting is a seminal example of the type of nude work that the Alexandrian painter produced. The piece shows a naked woman who's only wearing a bracelet and an earring. She is laying back on a comfy blue cushion and leaning her head in her left arm. The artist's nudes illustrate women who usually come from the working class, including peasants and sometimes prostitutes. They would accept to pose for the artist for money, which indicates their poor social conditions. Francophone intellectual Edgar Forty wrote in the journal La Semaine égyptienne: voici surtout dans de nombreuses toiles qui sont peut-être les meilleures de Mahmoud Saïd, les belles filles du peuple. Seins bombés, croupe lourde et cambrée, chair ferme et lisse, où glissent des reflets de bronze ou d'acajou. Contrary to the portraits of the women from the westernized bourgeoisie that Mahmoud Said also produced with a certain sobriety, these girls of the people completely display their bodies to the viewer's eyes. In the work L'Endormi, the woman is sleeping peacefully and lightly covers her sex with her right hand. Almost unconscious, she let the spectator enjoy the scene. The body becomes a fascinating and desirable object whose erotism aspect is heightened through a specific plastic treatment. First, Said insisted on the generous and sinuous curves of the woman by outlining her sensual silhouette with a play of shadow. The painter also worked on the parts of the model's body that he hypersexualized, and it seems that he found in the image of the indigenous woman a more sexual potential to play with the forms. The lips are bulbous with a provocative aspect, while the broad and firm breasts are unveiled as if they are looking at us. According to some interpretations, these exaggerated physical features could symbolize fertility, especially through the rounded shape of the stomach and the wide hips. The voluptuousness of the body is also rendered by an impressive work on the light, which is characteristic of Mahmoud Said's painted œuvre. Here he contrasted the glowing blue in the background with the golden light that covers the bronze-like color scheme of the model. Said beautified the body of an ordinary woman who could normally be despised by the society. The woman L'Endormi appears magnificent in all her glory. After 15 years living in France, Georges Hanas Sabah had to go back to Egypt in 1920 when his mother passed away. 1 year later, Sabah executed this painting entitled Nu allongé. Here, the Egyptian painter specifically demonstrated his affiliation to modern artistic movements and theories, which inducted him as the palm of the École de Paris. For example, we know that he frequented Italian painter Amedeo Modigliani and even worked with him. In this work, this affiliation could be seen in the palette of warm colors like the brown ochre color that Sabah employed and that were typical of Modigliani's œuvre in the 1900s. Through a very delicate gesture, he applied thin brush strokes to illustrate a character falling backwards on a bed and covered by a light coming from the outside. The gender of the model is, again, hard to define since we cannot see the face and the sexual parts are blurred. This body could be the one of a man. Sexuality in this painting is especially rendered by the fact that the body is painted upside down and the sexual parts are confronting the viewer's eyes. Back to Egypt in 1920, Georges Sabah traveled all over the country, rediscovering the landscapes of his childhood with a particular fascination for the Nile. His vision of Egypt is more symbolic rather than pure fantasy, as he wrote to French art critic René Jean. Ici, en Égypte, le soleil est beau, les teintes superbes, la lumière transparente et les femmes sculpturales. Les hommes superbes ne se doutent pas de la beauté de la race qui émane d'eux. In Nude allongé, the painter revealed a tendency for geometrical painting. More precisely, he played on the triangular shape that he repeated in different parts of the body of the character. The left elbow, the knees, and the position of the legs. Through the execution of this nude, Georges Sabah consequently transcribed his fascination for Egypt and especially the inspiration that he took from the artistic heritage of ancient Egyptian art. The tanned skin color recalls the color of the stone from the pharaonic temples or the pyramids weathered by the sand of the desert. On the other hand, this connection with ancient Egyptian art is also seen in his conception of the model's body. The latter adopts a spectacular position and seems to be treated like a monumental architectural construction. This nude allongé, is thus a perfect example which shows how Georges Sabah was able to combine his Egyptian identity with his artistic experience in France, his second home. The theme of the bath has always been explored by artists of all backgrounds, especially in the classical painting inspired by the Roman culture of the thermal bath. We can also remember that in many works of Orientalist painters like Jean-Léon Gérôme, the public bath called hammam in the Arab Islamic world was a recurrent topic which would feed the fantasy of the Orient through imaginary scenes. It is though interesting to see how artists from the Arab world appropriate this theme, which is certainly part of their cultural habits. In the artwork called Hammam, Iraqi artist Hafez Drubi specifically took up the theme, depicting a common scene in a traditional bath where some women are having a shower while some others are pampering themselves. Distancing himself from an academic approach and technique, Drubi worked on the geometrical shapes to draw the curves of the naked woman, showing their breasts and their buttocks. Besides, he insisted on the sensual aspect of the painting by illustrating a basket of apples in the bottom left corner of the canvas. He created a sort of a visual illusion by choosing an abstract style. He blurred the boundaries between the physical world and the illusion, playing with the architectural elements. In the example of Hammam, Hafez Drubi found a place where he could work on sexuality that he related to the theme of the bath. Through a technical mastery of avant-garde style, he revealed the female body almost as an object of temptation. Part of the contemporary art group, Egyptian artist Samir Rafia traveled to France where he completed his training at the École du Louvre in Paris between 1955 and 1958. During that time, he studied ancient Egyptian art from which he took inspiration to produce this imposing artwork called Momie Ressuscitée in 1959. Painted when he was in the French capital city, this piece shows a naked woman with red hair and blue eyeliner. Here it is interesting to see how Rafia combined different style and visual references. Tracing thick black lines, the painter synthesized the shapes of the body of the mummy that he reconstituted with geometrical forms. The elongated nose is rectangular, while the mouth is drawn like a semicircle. Thus, Rafia conceived this painting by connecting a pharaonic style with an avant-garde approach, more specifically, cubist. There is this notion of adapting the past in the present that Samir Rafia would apply in the subject itself. The example of Momie Ressuscité is that Samir Rafia didn't treat the mummy like a dead body. He preferred to make it alive, as the title means mummy resurrected in English. He effectively turned the mummy's illustration into a nude painting where the character is standing and the parts of her body are highly sexualized. The rounded shape is repetitively used to indicate that the breasts are firm and the curves are generous. The wide open eyes of the woman reveal that she is aware of the viewer's gaze, that she intentionally attracts to her pubis by putting her hands around it. In its execution, Momie Ressuscité demonstrates the artistic trend that Samir Rafia moved towards and which consists in the celebration of the ancient Egyptian art through innovative techniques. Samir Rafia depicted a mummy as a naked woman whose primitive representations personifies the glorious past of Egypt, which is revived,